Contarte Historias presents Sherlock, Lupin and Me. The Dark Lady by Irene Adler. Illustrations inspired by the work of Henry Toulouse-Lautrec. Chapter 17. Either all or none. The fight with the hooligans the previous afternoon had left some marks. Sherlock had a dark rim around his left eye and a cut on his upper lip, while Lupin had superficially skinned his side, where he also had an ugly bruise that made his movements stiffer than usual. Both were shirtless and their skin was covered in beads of sweat. Lupin's physique was lean and perfectly shaped, as if sculpted, while Sherlock was tremendously thin. On his fair skin you could see the swollen veins of his biceps and hands. Sherlock was the first to unroll the gauze that bound his cuffs, but I stopped him. "What are you doing?" I asked. "You're not going to leave it for me, are you?" He stared at me, breathing slowly, his temples pounding furiously. I turned to Lupin. "Can I try it too?" "Rio." He looked at me wide-eyed and finally understood that I was serious. "I haven't thrown a punch in my life," I said, smiling. "Maybe it's time for me to learn, don't you think?" Sherlock thrust his chin forward before answering me and spat into his hand the rudimentary toothguard he was wearing. "You'll always be safe with us. We were taken by surprise yesterday," he said first of all. I smiled at him. There was nothing to be done, formalities were useless with him. "In any case, I'm fine," I said. "I see," he said. "You, on the other hand," I smiled. "I'm fine, don't you think?" "Your gloves, Irene," Lupin said, holding out the bandages to me. "Give me your hands. I'll show you how it's done." I let him wrap the bandages around my fingers, protected by a layer of cotton wool, and then, when he was done, I slammed my fists against each other. I noticed that Theophrast Lupin was watching us from the veranda of the house, and I approached the hanging sack with ease. Without asking anyone, like a perfect braggart, I prepared to throw the first punch of my life. I put all my strength into it, and I felt a great pain in my hand, while that damned sack moved, more or less, a millimeter. Later we sat in a circle, exhausted from the jump rope and the exercises Lupin had forced us to do. It was time to talk. "Only one thing is certain," Lupin began. "Or rather, two." Sherlock's eyes didn't seem so convinced. "The first is that there is also a general involved in this affair here, in St. Malo. Therefore, it is not simply an outsider's story, as we had thought." "And the second one?" I asked. "That now they've made us understand." "Are you talking about yesterday's boys?" "But who were they?" I asked again. Lupin and Sherlock shook their heads. "We don't know who they are." "But they do," I observed. "Apparently, they are organized, and they had been following us for days." "I wouldn't be so sure," Sherlock said. "It may be, on the other hand, that they are insignificant rascals and that they have only heard us speak at the Hôtel des Artistes." I remembered the sound of footsteps I had heard the day before in the hotel lobby and told him about it. That detail seemed to confirm Sherlock's theory. "Spirou, the only one I recognized," Lupin said. "He's a kitchen assistant. Maybe he ran to warn the others and the fool of a boss decided to ambush us." "Perhaps," Sherlock interrupted doubtfully. "Or maybe the leader of the gang is just someone's henchman and it was someone who gave the order to prepare the lockup for us." "Anyone?" I repeated, a little confused by Sherlock's words. "And who would that someone be?" "We don't know. But probably someone more important and more dangerous. Someone who, unlike those thugs, it is logical to imagine that he is involved in the Lambert case or in the theft of the necklace," Sherlock surmised. "I don't know if you're right," Lupin said. But, to whoever is behind this story, we have now sent our message by force of trumpets. Yes, I thought, the hooligans had probably thought they were dealing with two city petimeters, and instead they had come up against tough nuts. But it was also true that, without Mr. Nelson's resolute intervention, we might not have been there talking at that hour, with only a few small bruises. I massaged my sore fingers. I hadn't liked punching, but I was glad I did. I felt lighter. Do we have a plan? I asked after a long moment of silence. Everything we had said was correct, but it did not advance the investigation one step. Spyro, Sherlock concluded simply. That is? He's the only one of the group we know, Lupin said. And also, one of the possible weak links. I don't know how involved Spyro and the others will be, but, if anything, they seem to know more than we did. Sherlock traced a series of small furrows in the soil with a dry twig. Besides, we know where he lives, his father is a fisherman, and they sleep in a little house right at the entrance to the port. I waited for Sherlock to lay out the rest of the plan. It was much simpler than I imagined. Let's follow him, he said, and see what he does when he's not working in the kitchen at the Hotel des Artistes. If he leads us to a den of miscreants talking about Lambert or stolen necklaces, Lupin went on. It's done. I shook my head. I think it's pretty dangerous. What if they see us? They won't see us, Lupin replied confidently. We'll make mistakes. And besides, Sherlock is very good at following someone without drawing attention to themselves in the slightest. And I guarantee you Lupin is no less so, Sherlock added. I looked at them, thinking again about the story of the window in my house, and which of the two of us had often opened the door to me. Maybe both of them, each behind the other's backs? I wondered. The thought made me smile. It is not certain that this Spyro will lead us at once to where we want to go, I said. Not least because, I thought, we didn't really have the slightest idea where we wanted to go. It could take a lot of time. We'll take turns, Lupin proposed, which received Sherlock's immediate approval. Good idea. Which of the three starts? I said, causing my friends to turn to me with dumbfounded. I opened my arms and searched for his eyes. What? What did I say weird? I asked. No way, Irene, you don't, Lupin began, his head down. But I silenced him with a gesture of irritation. I couldn't believe what I heard. That was the kind of attitude I would have expected from my mother, certainly not from my new friends and fellow adventurers. I remember that, at that moment, I felt an enormous rage growing inside me. I took a deep breath and vented that rage with words. Listen to me. Sherlock tried to interrupt me timidly, but I motioned for him to shut up. Both, because I have no intention of repeating it. The three of us started this adventure together, Sherlock, Lupin, and Irene. And we made a pact the afternoon we found that body on the beach. We decided that we would find out what had happened, the three of us together. We knew it would be dangerous, and maybe that's exactly why we did it. Don't be a child, Sherlock said curtly. You make this story sound like we're the Knights of the Round Table. Maybe, I retorted. But what are the three of us? Nothing. Irene, Lupin mumbled. What about you, Lupin? If my butler hadn't shown up yesterday afternoon, what would you have done with three hooligans on top of you? And you, Sherlock, have you already prepared lunch and dinner for your siblings so that your mother can play cards with her friends in peace? Who do you think you are, huh? I was furious. He had said words that, I knew, I would regret. I took another deep breath. Didn't we make a pact? Not really. Didn't we? So, let's do it now. I got up. I stretched out my hand wrapped in bandages, palm down. Either the three of us go all the way together or we'll stop it once and for all. I avoided looking at them. I kept my eyes fixed in front of me, fixed on the sea. And the outstretched hand, the rigid arm to keep him from shaking. Lupin was the first to get up. He put his hand on mine and said, "It's all right. It's worth it for me. Either all or none." A seagull flew low, a few feet from us, silhouetted against the cloudy sky of that Sunday morning that I would never forget. Sighing, Sherlock also got up. He put his hand on Lupin's, but it was so big that I felt the touch of his fingers on mine as well. "You're crazy," he said. "Say it, Sherlock," I muttered without looking at him. "Either all or none." He shook his head long before making up his mind. Either all or none. And I don't entirely exclude that Sherlock was right. How insane we would be. What did you think of this Sherlock, Lupin and Irene Adler audiobook? Did you like the ending? Who was your favorite character? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe to our channel to not miss the next chapter. The mystery continues.